In this world of technology, things are ever changing, rearranging. You need someone to help you out. I know
You'll
someone who
never
can.
be alone. You'll be with Paul. I'm a dead lane in the tech zone.
I am so happy to welcome back to the show my friend, my brother, the great Kevin Brown, co-founder, CEO of Lead Smart Technologies. KB, what's going on, my friend? How are you?
Just having a great morning here, just plugging away from the home office still and trying to get things done.
I hear you all. Wishing you and family safety and during these very difficult times. And
Thank you, and you as well. You know, we've our family stayed pretty locked down and kind of done everything to follow the directions that we've been given. And everybody's got different thoughts and opinions on what's right and wrong and how they're handling things. We've decided to be a little more cautious than other. I've got aging parents, and we try and help out each week and pay close attention to them and enjoy time with them. So we've both my wife and I have kind of, fortunately, we're truly blessed. Our children are grown. So our youngest is 22 and away at university, and so we don't have that challenge of the kids doing their homework and all of those things. But we've tried to stay real safe, and now we're vaccinated and feeling a little bit better about it.
Absolutely. Amen to that. Amen to that. And Kevin, last year, some very different and difficult times, but we adapted when it comes to technology and different virtual events and things like that. Kevin, what's your take on the year we just went through, and especially when it comes to the industry?
You know, I think that, man, that's we could spend a day just talking about that. You know, obviously we went through some huge changes, but I think what's really going to happen is companies and businesses in theory have the potential to come out of this better than where they really started. You know, obviously just a little over a year ago, things were moving along fine, and then everything stopped. And so we saw, you know, companies that we do business with and our customers all over the world literally go from in office to trying to figure out, did they have the right hardware, the right software? Did they even have the right people within their organization to do this work from home thing? I heard this great statistic that I've heard something similar a number of times. Basically, they said that in about 3 months' time, that adoption of both hardware and software and technology advanced 10 years within organizations. They didn't have a choice. So what we've seen is, you know, the companies that have done really well in working on adapting and working with their teams and really embracing the work from home concept, they're continuing to thrive. Now, of course, I don't mean to for 1 second, you know, minimize the damage that's happened to the restaurant industry and hospitality and a lot of other industries that have really been challenged. But we've seen some companies who have really, in some industries and segments, who have really had the opportunity to kind of raise their game, raise their people, and have been thriving. But it's been hard, right?
It sure has. And I'm glad, I know even like in our industry, when stations shut down, not really shut down, but when ones are relegated to work more at home, it really showed just how fragile things were. But like you said, other opportunities opened up. I mean, a lot of ones in my industry started doing their own thing, a little side hustle, and it really paid off and was successful for them. And when you look at just the changes that are out there, one thing that we notice, especially with the virtual events that we both took, partook of this year, and talk about how challenging that was, especially for someone in your industry. When you go to trade events like CES and others, you're there as maybe as a buyer, maybe as a, telling ones about the services that you provide and leading your expertise in different industries. How was that different this year, Kevin?
Yeah, so we've had some good conversations about that together offline to see all of this, and it's been interesting. And I'm going to tie a couple of things together with that if I can. What I found, and I've been attending probably the equivalent of, I'd say, a minimum of 8 to 10 trade shows and events like that a year since, I hate to say this, but 1989 is when I kind of got started in my career. And I've kind of, like to your point, had all sides of it. I've been there looking for suppliers or vendors. I've been an exhibitor at countless shows that I've actually done the booth and so forth. And then now running our technology, our software company, LeadSmart, what I really have used specifically, in fact, the last few years, the show that you and I talk and the event you and I talk about so much, which is the Consumer Technology Association's CES event, which is near and dear to all of our hearts, is such a great place to reduce the amount of travel historically that you've had to do, because everybody is converging on the same location, and you can just do all these meetings throughout a series of days. And I have a good friend of mine that works in the technology field, and I always laugh because he puts on social media all of his planning and his emergency and his hand wipes and his all of the stuff that he needed to stay around a lot of people pre-COVID even. But the concept of having literally like 6:30 a.m. to 11 p.m. meetings and meetups with people throughout the industries. So we've all had a ton of opportunity in the past to save time of lots of other trips by going to these shows and events. Now the challenges come is that those all stopped. And it's been very, very interesting for me to see. I think one of the great things that's going to come out of this is that we're probably going to start seeing a mix of event types. And I'm sure we'll talk about this a little more as we go on about hybrid type events. But it's been tough. I think CTA did a fantastic job with everything they worked on doing with the big Las Vegas event in January. But it just isn't the same. I've attended many virtual trade shows and industry association events. It's hard. It's just not the same.
No, I'm with you on that, Kevin. It's hard to hold your attention, and I think that I think we just missed the human interaction. Going meeting with one. Shaking hands, but we'll probably be fist bumping from now on.
Right.
Elbow bumping and things like that. But the ones that I've definitely attended to, it was just, I don't know if the ones who are a part of this event, not the ones who are putting this event on, but the virtual vendors. I know I attended a couple, and I go into the virtual room, they're not even there. And so what I do is I move on to the next, and I'm like, if I just don't know if a lot of people have taken this seriously who are virtual vendors. Now, some do an excellent job. You go in there, they're right there, they're answering questions, they can chat. But I was at one, I actually emceed a virtual event for the Abilities Expo. So during my downtime, I said, let me go support our vendors. So I went in there and nobody was there. So I sent them a message, hey, they never responded to that message even after the event. So, I just think that the hybrid approach going forward, I think is going to be great. But I think we really have to learn the lessons of the past, that if we're going to do a virtual event, we have to buy into it. Because if you don't buy into it, it's not going to be successful.
I couldn't agree with you more. And the challenge that I've seen, and by the way, to your point about the virtual trade show booths and so forth, is we've done a number of virtual events where we had our own little trade show booth there, and it's hard, right? Because people have not gotten into the mindset to say, well, let me go visit those, because maybe they went to one or two and had your experience, or to use a term from the past, it was just a lame experience, right? It was just like they didn't have any information there. They didn't have any downloads prepared. And so people are already struggling with the concept. Paul, what I've really found is my biggest struggle in trying to participate in these events is when I'm at my office for these events, I can't disconnect well. It's probably part of how my brain is wired, but I can't disconnect well. So I've got Microsoft Teams, flashing me messages from our organization all day. I've got emails still coming in, text messages happening, and I'm trying to maybe listen to the content that's going on in this event, and then monitor maybe our booth if I'm the one doing that day. And it's a struggle where, I'm used to the idea, right? Is I get on a plane and I fly to Orlando, or I fly to, Chicago, or wherever Las Vegas, wherever that event's going to be. And everybody on my team knows I'm gone, right? And you kind of can get a little bit away with things that way. It just hasn't, it hasn't worked quite the same in doing virtual events.
Yeah, you're spot on with that, Kevin. And that's why I enjoy talking to you about this, because you get it. You definitely get it. And now we're starting to see things opening up. And in every industry, we're really waiting to see how OSHA is going to have different guidelines when it comes to safety, updates of that, mask wearing, social distancing, and all the other things. But as we wait for that guidance and things are opening up, we're starting to see that some industries and some companies are like, hey, if you can work at home and you be productive, I don't mind, stay there. But then you have others saying, yeah, come on back to the office. So speak on that, Kevin, what we're looking.
Well, that kind of plays right into what our company does, right? Lead Smart, we're what we call the channel cloud. And so we connect companies and their third-party channel partners like agents and brokers and reps and dealers and distributors and VARs and resellers and so forth. We have a CRM platform that allows companies to communicate back and forth. But now we're in this place where we're in a work from home environment, is where access to data. And it's not necessarily just trying to be big brother to make sure everybody's still working, but it's access to the data that everybody needs, and sharing information and communicating cross-channel, not just internally, but with external partners. It's never been more important than where we're at right now, right? Because you can't run down the hall and just talk to somebody real quick. Now, you might jump into Slack or Teams or another tool that you might have, but it's not what we're used to, right? We don't have the water cooler thing going on anymore. We don't have that same opportunity. So it's been a huge issue for companies, and frankly, in the world that I live in the SaaS software world or cloud-based software world, it has been frankly a boom for our business and brought great opportunity. And because companies that were kind of dragging their feet or maybe working with more antiquated technology, they've really had to step up their game through all of this.
And Kevin, when we look at, especially in the sales industry,
sure,
meetings now are happening face to face, especially for ones who are vaccinated. I know a friend of mine who works over at CTA, she and I was communicating. They said, oh, yeah, I have my first in-person lunch with someone at LG. She said, but I promise we're both vaccinated. So she wanted to make that clear. But we're starting to see things opening up in person now. And talk about that dynamic, if you don't mind.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because I had this conversation with one of my co-founders yesterday. We're both vaccinated, but it's interesting, right? And I'll tell you where technology can play really into your business is that we have a growing and thriving company, and we have a small office here in Irvine, California, and another one where our corporate headquarters is in Santa Barbara, California. I have one of my co-founders is in New Mexico. Our operations manager is in Idaho. We've got people on the East Coast, a development team offshore in India. And then my co-founder and good friend Tom is up in Santa Barbara. I've not seen anybody on our teams face to face in over a year. I've not stepped foot in our small little office in Irvine or our corporate headquarters in Santa Barbara. I've not stepped foot into those since a year ago, April. So it can be done, right, when you put the right systems in place. But it's interesting as you talk about that. I'm going up to our office. I think I'm going up a week from Sunday. I'm heading up there for a couple of days. People that are there are vaccinated, but it's an interesting conversation. And I had a vendor yesterday ask about getting together and coming up and meeting us in person. And one of my partners said right away, yeah, sounds good. We can set that up. And we were talking later, and he said, I noticed you weren't necessarily enthusiastic about that. And I said, what's interesting is, and I'm still, as I mentioned, I've got family that's not vaccinated still, and I see them regularly. And it's important to me that, I'm not carrying that virus just because I'm not going to die from it. Right. Sure. So my partner said, my co-founder, Tom said, he goes, I noticed you're kind of a little hesitant about that. And I said, I can't identify the need for that meeting. Mm-hmm. Right. Because it's an important vendor to us, but we were on Zoom with him 3 times so far, and it's working. And so my comment was, I don't mind going, but why? And so I think we're moving into this place right now where people are going to kind of develop what works for them and what doesn't. And I have a good friend of mine that's up in Portland, and he runs a national distribution company. And he has commented how being forced to use Zoom has made him, for vendor meetings, has just made him extremely efficient, because instead of people coming in all the time, he's got them doing Zoom meetings and dropping off or sending in samples of things. So I think what we're seeing is, and I mentioned early on that there's some potential for improvement, and we come out of this maybe a little bit more efficient in some areas than we were. And I see that happening. I'll share an interesting story with you. Our company LeadSmart is partnered very closely with Salesforce.com. So Salesforce is the backbone behind our product that we've built. And so we have what's referred to as an OEM license that allows us to develop software on their platform. So I was talking with one of the key management people that I work with there very closely. They're getting ready to open their building up, right? They've got this monster tower in San Francisco that I think they didn't even have open for 2 years before they emptied it during the pandemic. But they're doing some really unique things where their people are going to literally be registering for the times that they're going to come into the office. They're going to have specific days, and then they're going to be notified of the time that they need to be in the lobby. And they're even going to be told what elevator to get on. That's how closely they're working at social distancing and keeping people safe. So I think we're starting to now see this. I think Nike even said this morning that they're getting ready to start their kind of hybrid back to the office approach, but not forcing people. So it's interesting to watch these solutions happen.
Yeah, I just interviewed a company, Sensor Technology, where it's going to keep track of employees as far as traffic, gases in the air, any viruses and things like that. So we're starting to see technology just really flourish
right
during this time. And I think it's going to make us a little more healthier too.
I do too. Well, and I think what you're seeing as well with this, Paul, is that we're getting this traditionally safety related products, right? That's plant floor stuff, or that's construction site stuff. So maybe it's a line item in a report that a CEO or a COO might reference and check regularly, and they've got people managing. It's not that it's not important, but now all of a sudden the safety issue related to the pandemic, it's a line item, not just a line item. It's something that senior executives are looking at every day. And it's unique you say that, because back to the topic of technology and the tools that are out there, is that based upon cloud-based software now, we all have this ability to connect, right? In our setting, we bring in lots of accounting data from external software systems and maybe marketing automation data. And the ability now is out there, whether it's on platforms like ours or others, where you can even take that environmental monitoring data and so forth and have a dashboard in it, right? So we have all of this, and this is the beauty of the cloud, right? And that's a whole nother thing we could talk about for an hour someday. But the beauty of the cloud is you can have these systems out there, and you can start pulling in pieces of information to make business decisions from.
I like what you said, Kevin, as far as you and your business partner was talking, and you said, "Is it necessary? Is it necessary?" I know I'm going to do my first accessibility consulting job here in a matter of days, and I haven't did it. The last consulting job that I had was right before COVID shut down. We were there on site. It was the last day of our project, and we got there and they said, "Hey, we got to send you guys home." The governor just shut everything down. So it's been over a year and a half, and everyone's there is vaccinated. We got to take a COVID test 2 days before to make sure that we are all the safety protocols and things like that. So we're starting to see the necessity of it, because we were first going to try to do it remotely. But sometimes things necessitate that you can't do that. But I'm like you. If I don't have to necessitate it, I'm good. I'm good with doing it virtually and looking at the cleanliness standard. I know an organization that you and I are both a part of. We implemented that many years ago, safety and cleanliness and everything.
Right.
So it's great to see like other industries recognizing this and everything. So, Kevin, what's going to be the new normal when it comes to sales and marketing?
Sure.
What do we think we're looking at going forward as things start to continue to improve with this pandemic?
Yeah, I want to touch base with you on something you were just saying before I jump into that, if I can.
Absolutely.
It's interesting about that necessity thing, right? And it's clearly something that we all have to decide for ourselves, and companies are going to do. I think we've got a long way to go here in figuring out, do you have to be vaccinated, and all the, whether it's civil rights or personal privacy or whatever it is that goes with that. Frankly, for me, I'd like to have my vaccination in my Apple Wallet on my phone. That's me. But I think we've got a ways to go with all of those things for people to kind of figure out how that is going to work, from who can come to a meeting and who can't, in reference to what you were mentioning there before. So it's an intriguing time. Related to your question about kind of what's next, there are so many unique things happening. And in reference to your point about this consulting project, it made me think. I was at a conference. We do a lot in the industrial manufacturing world, where manufacturers, independent reps, and distributors use our software to communicate amongst themselves and in their network, where normally they'd be, we sometimes like to look at our software as I call it, we're the email and spreadsheet buster, because so much business is done by that, and we can all bring that in and collaborate with other companies in that setting. And so, we do a lot, as I mentioned, in the industrial setting. And I was at a conference, a virtual conference, and I heard one of the manufacturer companies there, and they make cutting tools for industrial machinery, right, for manufacturing. And during the height of the pandemic, they started using virtual reality goggles, where they brought into facilities of their customers VR glasses, where their engineers at their facility could see what the application of the job was. Now, for 100 years, somebody got in a vehicle or a wagon or whatever it was and went to that factory, looked over that machine operator's shoulder, and saw the problem. Well, they couldn't do that during COVID, but the manufacturing company still had to keep running and operating. So we are seeing a lot of these things where people have adapted. I have a good friend that runs a sales and marketing organization, and they've got 60 plus people across the country. With the COVID shutdown, it impacted their business quite a bit on one side, but the safety and health part of their business was growing, so things balanced out. But they were saving literally 6 figures a month in travel expenses of their team. Right? Well, now what does that do to your business? Right? Now, if your business isn't suffering because of the not having to travel, and you're saving those dollars, you can put that into training, education, technology, all of the other things that you need to do to expand your organization. So this particular company I mentioned is kind of going back to that hybrid mode, where they're going to do as much as they can remote. Where their team needs to travel, they will. They'll probably continue to save a good chunk of that travel and entertainment budget that they can reinvest in their company. So I think, in answer to your question, where we're headed, and this is my gut feel today, is that people are going to continue to grow and embrace technology. They're going to find a way to have that help them with their business. And what they're going to do is start really scrutinizing, do we need to be there? Now, I don't question for a second. There are businesses that no matter what you say, you got to be there, right? There's no question. But look what happened with telehealth, right? Who would have thought that we would be talking to our doctor, over an iPad? It's working in so many settings. So I think where we're truly headed is to that hybrid model, and it really becomes interesting, right? Because now, and it's funny, I've watched one of our customers in this setting, is they have people all over the world in a sales function, but those guys have always been out on the road. Well, now they've embraced better technology, including ours, to manage and see what's going on with those teams. Now, they did it kind of to, I don't want to say big brother, but they wanted to also know what people were accomplishing, right? So they can see that through our software. But really now they've got this situation moving forward where their people are so much more efficient with how they're using their time. So I do truly think what's going to happen is that we're going to end up in this area where companies start establishing guidelines that say, hey, you know what? You can fly under these circumstances. you should drive to see customer under these circumstances, and you do everything you can virtually. And when it's necessary, go visit in person.
I love that. Yeah, it makes sense.
Well, it's what we're doing, right? I look at it, and this, I came to a big realization, because I've been a road warrior my whole career. I think I was still in my 30s or early 40s when I passed my first 1,000,000 miles with American Airlines. So, I was traveling, and as I've gotten older, I'm far less interested in it. And but what I found is that the amount of deals that I've been able to accomplish this year through technology tools, both with our channel partners, we sell some of our software through referral partners and value-added resellers, as well as just my own activity using Zoom and our software and Teams and things like that we've embraced. I'm accomplishing deals that I would have never imagined that I could do by not seeing something. We have a great new client, not new, they've been with us about 6-7 months now, in the Los Angeles area. That's only an hour and a half from where I live. They're using our product in, I think, 4 languages in about 15 countries and about 60 people. And they're, hour and a half away roughly, and I've not been up to see them. Historically, I would have never thought of that, but we needed to get something done. We all embraced the tools that we have, and we accomplished it. I did a project a while back, a 6-figure project with a company on the East Coast, and their corporate counsel and I were talking about finishing up some contract things, and we were just laughing that we'd been able to do this deal without visiting each other or shaking hands. So I think we're seeing that now. In my case, Paul, what I'm really seeing for personally is me getting on an airplane, 3 times a month now, that's gone.
Yeah.
Right. The likelihood is for me is because we're partnered with a lot of major trade associations and large buying groups and so forth, where they've selected our software as their preferred partner and so forth. They have a lot of, they're dying to get back to live events. And as those live events start happening, I'll need to be at some of those, as well as some of our team will. But I think the majority of my guess is the majority of my travel in 2022, because I'm trying to stay locked down where I can the rest of this year, if I can. Probably Q4 is when I'll probably get on an airplane. But into next year, I think most of what I'll be doing will be going to events as opposed to individual meetings.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
But the tools are there for us, right? We don't need to not be able to get things done. We don't need to be struggling to go visit every one of our distributors or dealers when we can connect with the right type of software.
That is so true. That is so true. So KB, as we wrap up our conversation, who's going to win, who's going to struggle, and who's going to take it well going forward? Well,
I think that's a great question. And I'll reference the point I made earlier to this Paul, with, there is no question that the pandemic has caused major damage to a number of industries and many, many small businesses. And I look forward to seeing what those people do to reinvent themselves and or restart those businesses. But, the winners so far are clearly those companies who were already thinking ahead of time. I'll use a quick example to go with that. I watched an interview with a gentleman from 3M, and 3M was pretty well prepared for the work from home thing, because they have, facilities all over the world and salespeople and teams all over the world. But within a couple of weeks of the pandemic, the CEO of 3M was talking to their senior IT leadership and basically saying, how could we have done this better? Right. So in answer to your question, I think the people that are winning right now and thriving are those people who have embraced technology. They've taken a look at how they can make their businesses better by using tools that give them better insights into their business, understanding their sales, their marketing, their accounting data, stuff that, somebody sent them a report here and there. They're really owning that and seeing that early on and seeing trends in their businesses from that. So the companies pre-COVID that were starting to do that or were already doing that did well. The companies that are now expanding and embracing that are the ones that are going to come out the other side, much, much better companies. And my belief is that what we're really going to see is companies are going to become much more profitable, because they understand their business relationships better. They communicate amongst their channel partners and their constituents better. And they've embraced these tools so that they don't need to be running all over the place with chickens with their head cut off and sending spreadsheets, because they've taken this difficult time and they found these new tools, much like that VR goggle thing that I was telling you about, and other ways that people have adapted. Those things that they've done to adapt during COVID are going to carry them into a continued mindset of innovation and growth.
I totally agree. And Kevin, always great catching up with you and chatting all things tech and all things industry and what we can learn from it. And how can ones, tap into the resource that is that brilliant mind of yours, my friend? How can they contact you and find out some more great things?
I guess that just depends on who you talk to about the brilliant part. So you can find me very, very easily online. I'm easy to find on LinkedIn, which I'm very, very active on, as our company is. It's just Kevin L. Brown. And Twitter is Lead Smart CEO. Very simple. LEADSMART CEO. And we have an Instagram page. We have all the social media things for our company. And then simply, if you want to reach out to me anytime, my email is kbrown@leadsmarttech.com. I love talking to people in conversations like we had today, not necessarily even about using our product, but just about growth and technology. But LinkedIn is probably where I'm most prolific and have most of these conversations.
I appreciate that. And Kevin, I appreciate your bookcase. Yeah, one of my favorite books back there, New World Translation, Holy Scripture. I love that.
Yeah, that's always nearby.
Absolutely. Hey, my friend, great catching up with you. Stay well, and look forward to chatting with you soon.
I'm stopping by on my next way north.
You're going to get that homemade beer.
I'm going to get that homemade beer you're making. I'll smoke some fish and make a trade.
Let's do it.
All right, brother. We'll see you soon.
Take care.